Well, when last I left off, some hours ago, there were still bugs from the bug list remaining. There are two, which are relatively big bugs that I cringe to think about hitting. One of them is easier than the other, so I guess I'll do the easier one. It's still a pain. It's still a big old pain. And then there's a relatively easy bug to deal with, which I'm not going to do yet, and that's just this one, the fact that this test here is failing. That's addressable, but it's a relatively minor problem that doesn't affect anything else. So, and like I said before, I'm not totally sure that this is the right language design decision anyway. So, yeah. Yeah. All right. I've eaten so much junk food since I got back. It's crazy. It's crazy. Oh God, even this tea smells bad. I don't know if I can do it. Can't do it. Can't do it. Okay, I'm trying this peppermint licorice tea. See how it goes. The testing code was done by the other guys working on the compiler. I think mostly Abner, or all Abner, I don't know. Starting mostly with the demo code that I did in previous demos and reworking those into a test suite that can be automatically run. I don't do yoga, so there won't be a yoga stream. These aren't unit tests. No, tests are not unit tests, okay? Tests are tests. Unit tests are a different thing. Of course we test. Oh my God. You can't ship games without testing. Well, I guess some people do, but they're terrible and crash all the time. That mat is not for yoga. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Oh. So let's see, is it bug 33 that I'm thinking of? Let's figure out which one's the easier one. Yeah, okay. So this is an unimplemented feature, which is comma-separated assignments with a single value on the right-hand side are not yet supported. Now, there's a secondary problem that I would like to solve at the same time as addressing this, which is that, so most languages, when approached with something like this, would do what's called desugaring and break this one assignment statement into two separate assignment statements that assign to the same thing. The problem with that approach, or at least the naive version of that approach, is it changes the syntax tree, and I don't want to change the syntax tree because you want users to be able to look at the syntax tree. So what that means is that I need to be able to support in binary operators all the way through type checking, I guess, having stuff on the left here, like a comma separated thing on the left. So basically, I kind of want to change where this is evaluated, because I am doing this through desugaring right now, but I want the ability for people to see the syntax tree from the meta program and be able to write out exactly the same program byte for byte identically. And as long as we do rewrites before people see it, that's no good. And then even if we give them the old version, like if we rewrite some tree expression and give them the pre-rewritten version that's different from what the compiler uses internally, then it's not going to have the right type annotations on it probably, unless we do something crazy about mapping the type annotations back. So really what has to happen is they have to get a syntax tree which says, hey, this is a comma separated argument on the left-hand side of a binary operator, and the code generation has to deal with it, which is a slight pain in the butt, but doable. Slight pain in the butt. Or I can desugar at a later time than the parser. Let me think about this, because this is potentially appealing. I can desugar at a later time than the parser, and I can map the information back. You know, I kind of like that better. I can desugar at type check time. And map the information back. The problem being that if this thing on the right has side effects, I can't just say val equals thing on the right and found equals thing on the right, because if the thing on the right has side effects, you don't want to evaluate it twice. So essentially, I need to create a temporary variable representing that thing. Which is going to have its own declaration and everything. Or I have a thing called an extract that I could use. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to desugar this later. And then when I evaluate each of these guys, I'm going to map back onto the undesugared version, the type information so it's available to users. What a pain in the butt. But it's different than how I was going to handle it before, and still probably better. Does anyone have any questions about what I'm ranting about? what is array 9 supposed to return in found? So if you have two things on the left and one thing on the right like this, it's just supposed to assign the same value to both things on the left. Like if you say like x comma y equals 0, then that's obvious, right? It like puts 0 in both x and y. Now I'm not totally sure that that's the best thing because I mean, maybe we shouldn't allow this before let's have a little discussion here, right? Because, so one thing that can happen is you can have a procedure that returns two arguments, right? So I can say f is, let's just say nothing and returns int and bool, right? And then there's some body. And then I can say a comma b is f, right? Now that's fine, and that does one specific thing. However, here's what I don't like about the very general version of what I just said. Suppose I come along later, this is one version of my program, right? And then I come along later and I edit f to get this version of the program. I just delete this argument, right? This is still going to compile and type check just fine. It's just that because the thing on the right is a scalar value now with one return value, it's going to assign it to both things. I don't like that. So maybe I say this format is valid only if it's a constant. Like if you want to say a comma b equals 0, that's fine. But if you want to say a comma b equals foo sub 7 or sub 8, you know, I don't, it's like this is in a confusing territory that's a little too close to this. Whereas this is very simple. So maybe what I'm going to do is just say it has to be a constant, which is how it is now. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good to change the return type and it still compiles. So I need, really what I need to do is decide what the rule is. And you know what? In the spirit of shipping the language to people very quickly, I'm fine with it just being constants. I think as long as we give people a good error message when that happens, that it's maybe okay. Now I still want to change where in the compiler this happens. But yeah, I'm okay with it just being constants, I think. What's the return type of f? Is it a container? No, this is not a container. This is just two return values. We don't make temporary tuples. There's no such thing as a tuple in the semantics of this language, or a tuple, or however people decide to pronounce it. There's no such thing. So it's just that the left-hand side is matched up to the right-hand side, and the values are assigned one by one. It's purely syntactic. There's no value. Yeah, it would have to be a literal constant, not a function that returns a constant, because a compiler might not be able to see at that time that it's a function that returns a constant, or you know, just when you have rules like that, it's best that they are very, very clear. I don't think it's an inconsistency. So someone's saying they don't like it if you say do it for constants but not other things because then you create inconsistencies. It's not really an inconsistency. It's very consistent. It's very well defined, right? It's different from an inconsistency. So anything that's sufficiently complex is going to have corner cases where the behavior gets kind of tucked into a corner. You can't avoid it. And so part of what my job is to pick the best versions of those that I can. Now the reason that I'm thinking of is not really stuff like this, right? Because setting things to 0, that's not that different from like A equals 0, B equals 0, or whatever. But if it's not 0, right? If you're trying to say like A, B, C equals float 32 infinity, right? Because you're then gonna, they're like bounds on some computation and you're shrinking the values. It's super different to have to say this, right? That's a lot more program text and it's prone to paste errors, right? Whereas this is just a lot better. So I want to preserve the ability to do this. I think that this feels good. And this doesn't feel good. So the problem with this, well, if I do this the C way, it means that equals is an operator that returns a value, and that's just a horrible hack that causes a lot of problems. So I very deliberately made the choice that we're not going to do that, right? Equals returns void, so you can't use it, and it's an error to accidentally use it in the wrong way. So now you don't have, you don't have the problem where you're saying this, right? Because this is not legal anymore, because equals does not produce an expression. And it also means that we don't have ambiguities, like when I'm naming arguments in a function call, right? If I say f of x equals 3 and y equals 5, right? I can do that, and this is a non-ambiguous way of telling the value for each of the argument names in f, right? So I can use equal for that because equal is not an expression, whereas in C you can't do this because this is an expression that like tries to assign 3 to a local called x. So that in general is a very winning decision overall. I like it. So we're not doing this, right? It would be this. So why can't they be simultaneous recipients of the same access or call even parallelized? It's because of this that I said before, right? If this is, if this is legal, which it is, then I don't want it to be legal to do this. I could just say it can't be a procedure call on the right, but then when we get into macros, if macros look like procedure calls, then it's very confusing, right? So I'd rather draw the line at constants or not constants, because I think the thing about a constant is it doesn't make your program harder to think about when you start doing this, right? There's something about a constant where like you don't have to think about when it happens, because the procedure call, there's no procedure call to happen. You don't have to think about how the value is going to get casted to the different things on the left because it's obvious, right? How about spaces? No, I mean, introducing spaces like that into a syntax like this is a disaster because it makes syntactic ambiguities elsewhere in the language. You really don't want to do that. How about const expr functions for this kind of assignment? What does that mean? We don't have const expr functions in that way. We don't do that in this language. It's different. Okay, well, you know what? So the hard part of this, or the annoying part of this, actually doesn't have that much to do with what we accept on the right. The annoying part is moving it from where it's happening out to the type checker. And after that is done, there's going to be another annoying part, which is we have to do the same thing for declarations, because I'll show you guys, it may not be on this stream, but there's an ugly thing that happens every time we parse a declaration that is also due to the declaration version of this, 3 things on the left. And I want to figure out what to do with that too. This is sort of the easier warm-up case for that. So really what I'm going to do, like right now it only accepts constants anyway, because the compiler error is like, hey, comma-separated assignments with a single value on the right-hand side are not supported unless the thing on the right is a literal. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep that and make that official. And this won't be internal compiler error anymore. And then if we decide that's a mistake, we can always expand the functionality, right? But I want to move where this happens. That's my priority. That is my priority. Yeah, if f was assigned a constant, that would be valid, yes. Suggest adding a new operator instead of equals. Yeah, but like what would that operator be and why is it different from equals exactly? So when I say a literal here, anything that's defined as a constant, it could be an identifier if that identifier is defined as a constant, right? So the compiler knows that. It's basically anything the compiler can evaluate to a literal at compile time is what that means. So it can be an identifier defined as another identifier, defined as another identifier that's eventually defined as a literal, and that works fine. Right, but if you make a separate identifier only for this, then that's an even weirder corner case than just using equals, right? You're making people memorize a weird operator that, yeah, I don't know, man. Anyway, so like I said, the important part is actually moving it. So let's get to that. Moving it. Moving it. Moving it. Oh, I have another thing I can do on today's stream too if this goes successfully. All right, so what error are we looking for? Unless the thing on the right is a literal. Yeah, so that happens in type checking. Oh wait, it already happens in type checking. Wait, I don't even have to move it? What? Dude, this is already right. Sweet. Wait, I don't have to do anything for this. So we make a sequence, and then we assign it. Dude, I already did this work. Oh, right, because it was necessary to handle the procedure of the call version. Dude. That's great. And I don't have to do anything except no, I really don't have to do anything at all. I just have to change the error message. All right. Done. Done. Error, comma separated assignments. The single value on the right hand side are only supported if the value on the right is a literal. Except that there's another thing where we could say, like, limit is, you know, something, right? And I feel like I could allow it to be a single identifier. Yeah. Is a literal or a single identifier. Report no label. Example, A, B, C, float 32 infinity. A, B equals 0. A, B, C equals float 32 infinity. D, tutorial 5. A, B, C equals D. So that's a little more lax than I was saying. So it can be a variable as long as it's a single variable. Oh, putting the spread operator. Oh, that's a good. That's not an altogether. Let me think about that. I mean, it kind of means something really different than the spread operator usually. It's not necessarily bad, though. I need to think about that. I need to like hold that idea in mind for a little bit and see how it gels with everything. So, you know, the suggestion in chat is to do this, right? A, B, C equals dot dot limit. And then once you do that, you could put anything there, right? So then if I said f of 6 or whatever, then we expect this to be a procedure with only one return value. The thing is, it means something very different, but, and it would be annoying to parse, honestly, a little bit. Maybe not too annoying. It could work. This could work. We're going to keep this in mind, certainly for when we do the syntactic rewrite, but maybe before that. Like if people start getting really annoyed at this rule, in fact, I'm just going to put it here. In the future, we might consider a different syntax that lets us put anything on the right-hand side. For example, A, B, C equals dot dot f of 7. In fact, I'm going to go all the way explaining. I guess I deleted my other buffer. We require this to be fully unambiguous, because we want to avoid the following situation. We start with a program that looks like this, f of whatever well, this int a b equals f, and then later we remove one of the return values from f, this program still compiles, but the assignment to b is a very unexpected result. Without complaint, what we want is for the system to tell the user, for the compiler, to tell the user that the AB assignment needs to be updated. Having a different syntax would prevent this ambiguity. The current solution is never to allow a procedure call or anything on the RHS, which that's a big comment. Yes, they are blues. There are no tuples in this language, Ginger Bill. If you want consistent semantics regarding extensions, you're going to need to be explicit how that value will be duplicated and how many times. No, I don't think that's true, actually. Unless I misunderstand what you mean. All right. Let's make sure this works. Release compiler. Oh, I don't say error twice. I don't need to say a single identifier, just literal or identifier. Okay. Technically self-destructing tuples from the multiple return values. No, they're not. It's not true. That's not true. Not true. There is no such thing as a tuple in the language semantics. No such thing. It does not exist. Okay, so the other thing I was going to do, since we have implicit conversions to since we have implicit conversions now between the relative pointer strings, that means that I can simplify the code in the print library if we rely on that. Because remember, during that stream, for anyone who's watching that, whoops, we went here and we have this like get full size string from an any. Oh, except, no, we can't use that. Okay. Okay, never mind. We still have to do it this way. It's fine. Because once things go into an any, you know, you don't know what type they are at compile time, so we can't use implicit casting. That's fine though. Less work for me to do. Okay. This leaves only one bug on the bug list that Abner and those guys are giving me, but it's going to be maybe a bug that requires me to do during daylight hours when I'm fully awake and am willing to make large changes to how things are structured. It is a scary one. So I'm going to leave that for now. And I'm going to go to the to-do list. And so there's this to-do list here, and it's full of things that I put, you know, when I see something wrong. This is that trivial test that's failing, but there's other stuff. So like this, I noticed at one point that this wasn't working. It might have been fixed by some of these other bug fixes, but it might not have. So I want to go through this list and sort of test these things and prune them out and see what happens. Yeah, it's definitely my plan to get this running on consoles. I want to ship the Sokoban game on the PlayStation 4 or something similar for sure. Nope, they're not stored in a struct. Nope, nope, nope. They are not stored in a struct. They are passed as pointers to the procedure, yes, but they only go on the activation record. They go nowhere else. And also, in the case of only one thing on the right-hand side, there is no activation record because you're assigning to a scalar. So that is even more purely a syntactic construct. Okay. Something with an average 5-minute compile time, even when using a distributed build system. 5 minutes, dude, back in the old days, I've worked on project with 45-minute to an hour compile times for games that you wouldn't even think were big enough to justify that. And let me tell you, it was pretty bad. Okay. I'm just going to look through here for things that look like... Okay, I already did this thing in the top line here. I want to look at that. I want to look at this. I want to look at this. want to look at this. I think that might be fixed now. I definitely want to look at this. And that's probably enough for now. I don't know if I'm going to get through all these. So then the goal will just be to cut down on the length of my to-do file, right? It's 375 lines. If we can cut 18 lines off it tonight, you know, that's more than 5%, or it's about 5%. That's pretty good. So Ginger Bill is giving this example, returning I32, F32, return 123321. X, Y equals foo. Bar of X, Y, bar foo. No, bar of foo is not allowed. I don't do that. It's up in the air whether I should allow that, but I don't actually support that right now. But even if I did, that still wouldn't make it tuples. Not the way that I would implement it. On a scale of 1 to 100, how happy am I with the current state and progress of the compiler? I'd say about 80. Part of that is just because I've been on vacation for a long time and working on witness stuff for a long time, so it's been slowing down, but it's about to speed back up. Yeah, I don't, so that bar of foo thing, on the one hand, it seems like a language should support that because duh, right? On the other hand, it encourages long chains of, it encourages building chains of constraints where you have to go edit every single site if you change a return value of one of those procedures. Like, if you're going to build something like that, then it probably should be a struct, actually, because that's much more editable and much more understandable. So that's my policy, is if you want to do that, use a struct. The language isn't going to support it for you. But, of course, I realize other people may have other opinions. How much would I pay for this internet? I don't know. You can't trust speed test. Because sites just automatically juice speed test, right? And then throttle you to other places. So let's just see what I get. I don't even know what my throughput is. Yeah, I mean, so that's pretty good. It's enough to play PUBG. Fast.com. Yeah, it doesn't. So for the most part, multiple return values are only supposed to be used in one place at the calling site, right? So I don't propagate them at all, for sure. How much am I paying for my internet? I actually don't know. Let me see if I have an email bill. I don't think I do. No. Sorry. I have no idea how much I pay, but it's not that much. It's like, I want to say like $100 a month or something, which on the one hand sounds like a lot, but like for professional internet service, that's not a lot. Yeah, it might be less. It might be $70 a month or something. You know, it's not 10, but it's not 1,000. Okay. Let me start digging into some of these. I'm going to postpone this one because that might actually, whoops, I accidentally closed my chat. Whoops. All right. All right. I'm going to do these ones. So, before I start doing anything, actually, let's make sure Sokoban still compiles and runs, which it does. Okay, so I had this in here, and I guess I commented it out. So let's see what happens. Undeclared identifier T. That's no good. That definitely is supposed to work. Hash assert is a compile time assert. So probably what's happening is its scope is not being correctly, the parent scope is probably not being correctly set or something. Let me figure that out. So we want to run gotta delete all my old breakpoints. Okay, so our identifier is T. What is its enclosing scope? It's in an imperative block. Now, that's going to be, so a hash assert like this generates its own little procedure. So that's going to be that procedure. So the parent is the arguments of that procedure, constants block of that procedure with no parent. All right, so yeah, that's not good. Let me just figure out where that's getting set. I probably have other asserts, right? Run line number, run file name, draw. Oh, it is this one. Maybe I don't have other static asserts in this whole program right now. So we make a lambda. Okay. I think that because of the set of arguments I'm passing to parse block, it's not going to push a block. Let me see. Pre-existing block. Right. Yeah. I just need to do this. Inline 666. Lambda, do we, if I make a lambda, do they all have a constants block? Arguments block, yeah, okay, I give everybody a constants block right now. So that's fine. So I have to do this for run directives also. And I do set that for run directives. I just didn't do it for assert. All right. Is there any other case in which I make a run? So this is run directive. This is assert directive. Nope, those are the only two cases. All right. 6, 6, 6. The number of the, okay. It's good that I'm fixing bugs that people ain't even reported to me. Proactive. Look, it worked. And it runs. It doesn't even crash. All right. Boom. Now I'm going to start some new T. All right. I'm not really an Iron Maiden fan, but sometimes. I'm going to get a copyright strike on my stream for that. I have not been going for 9 hours straight, no. I had a big break. Big break. Okay, XX does not work for operator overloaded conversion of float to int. Well, we can test that pretty quickly. think when my building opens tomorrow morning, I can go downstairs and get my serious tea equipment that I ordered while I was away. Because in Prague, I learned the way of having tea that pleases me the most and that I will switch to. I'll illustrate sometime. I'll just put it this way. I learned why a tea candle is called a tea candle, which wouldn't have made sense to me before. Okay. It did not include beer. I'm just going to hack up this example. Ah, that's a little long. We'll make a new file. And I'm going to say vector2 is a struct, x is a float. No, I will say x and y are both floats, right? And then I'm going to say, oh, I need to, actually, let's, all right, we already have a vector2 in math. So v is a vector2, v.x equals 1, v.y equals 2, v times equals 3, print v is blah v. And you know what? Let's just run main here. Okay, so v is a vector 2, 3, and 6. That is fine. If I say a is an int, a equals 3, v times equals a, this will not work because it won't implicitly convert. In fact, it's saying, oh my God, we don't have an operator that takes an int on the right-hand side. In fact, I probably want to trim these down. Like right now I'm saying every overload, and in reality some of these overloads match one parameter. So I probably should just say this one. But right now, if you don't match an overload, we report every single one, and we overload times for all the math things. If you're having this xyz equals 1 to 3, well, you also have xyz times equals 2. I think that works. Actually, I should have tested whether that works. So let's test whether that works. So x, y, z is a float. X, y, z plus equals 1. What happens there? That didn't work. All right, is it this or is it something else? Okay, type checking is broken there. So this works, but for some reason, that's actually probably related to my current bug, actually, right? So we're like, it's probably the same bug that I'm debugging right now. Like in operator overloading, we're not doing the proper type checking and coercion or whatever. So let me just knock this back. Let's make it simpler. Whoops. Make it easy to spot so we know when it's working. And let's make it more readable, because why not? Okay. So, well, actually, I mean, does this even work? Oh wait, no, it's a different bug. This is a different bug than this, I think. Because this is not operator overloading here, right? This is just this is just related to this other stuff we were just looking at. So what we have to do is we have to check that types match. All right. I think that'll just fix it. Type mismatch, wanted void. Oh, because, right, binary left is the tuple. So we want new binary left. New binary left. Still doesn't work. Still doesn't work. Let's go to debug compiler, just so we can see if there's asserts or anything like that. Nope. All right. We're in bug 42 folder. And 1038. Line 22, let's make super sure. Get rid of this one. All right, so it is the right place. So now, actually, let me rerun here. So before this call to check that types match, the value of right is CC20. It's a literal, obviously. I don't remember if this is allowed to modify literals. But anyway, it's a number. It's got number flags of OX423. So 3 is float. Wait, it's already a float? I guess we already did this. So it's a float, it's solidified, and it's 32 bits. That's already correct. So then my question is, what the hell? Does it have an incorrect inferred type? So this isn't going to change. Yeah, it didn't change because it was already fine. Number flag is 423. Well, folks, I don't know what to say about this. It looks like it's right, but why is it wrong? It's obviously wrong. It doesn't work. But it says that's a float, man. Yeah, I mean, I guess I should look at the literal more closely. Oh, its float value is 0. So I did but its integer value is 1, but its number flags are float. Okay, so that's the problem. Its number flags are set to float, but wherever this conversion happened, didn't do the right thing. When you're tagged as float, your value is supposed to be in one of these slots. It's not supposed to be in this slot. So let's figure this out. We're going to say just make everything afloat like JavaScript. Yes, that would be much easier. What a great idea. In fact, why didn't I just make JavaScript? Okay. It's a copy of an old literal. Interesting. Okay, let's look at that one. I bet we're going to copy it because we're about to mess with the number flags. Yes, the number flags here don't say float. So what's happening is this is copying the literal. Yeah. Okay. This is copying the literal and tweaking the number flags. Right there, right before my breakpoint, if I had just looked a few lines up, I would have seen it. The problem is you can't just do that. You can't just do that. So I feel like maybe I already have some code that does this. So let me look for that. Because you can't just do that. You can't. You can't. It's not okay. It is not legal. The longest I've ever been stuck on a bug was like a week or 2 weeks, and it turned out my computer was broken. It wasn't a bug. It's really like if you really, and that was 20 years ago, 25 years ago when I had much less experience. Like if you really want to solve something and you concentrate and you don't go read stupid websites or go on, you know, watch TV or something, then it really doesn't usually take that long to solve things. It did feel very difficult. It was a very difficult to isolate bug. That's why I couldn't solve it, because I couldn't make it happen consistently. It only happened when the game was under heavy load. Turned out the motherboard was unstable because we'd shipped that machine. It was my everyday work machine. We shipped it to E3 in New Orleans to show the game, which wasn't worth doing. And yeah. What was the decision to store the value of a literal as a struct instead of a union? It's just because if you store it as a union, then in the debugger you see garbage values for the other members, and I want it to be easy to debug right now, so I don't do that. Later it'll be a union to conserve memory, right? But for now, I care about my ability to debug much more than I care about memory. Yeah, talking to Twitch chat also keeps you from getting stuff done. For sure. Okay. So I want to look for float 64 value. Who writes to that? constexpr does. Maybe something in constexpr is useful. Copy literal. All right, that's very boring. Okay, not Lexer, not Messenger, not parser. Make float literal. Well, we certainly could do that. So this thing in type checking, oh, do number solidify cast. This probably, this only goes from int to float, but I think that's fine. So if I have two literals, yes. I'm going to factor this out and try to use this. Okay. We don't need to say correctly. Correctly is presumed. We don't want to do things incorrectly. Okay, so we're just going to do that. Hopefully, I don't need any. Oh, this is asked literal. Okay, so now, where was my other thing? Don't even know. Right here, line 1032. So that's way earlier in the file. So here we're going to say if let's make this very clear. Okay, if old literal not literal, literal. That might be all that I need. So if we go from float to not float, then that's bad. No off-topic YouTube questions, please. Hey, look, it worked. No off-topic YouTube questions while I'm trying to program, please. Okay, that's good. Let's run our tests. Of course, that wasn't the to-do item that I set out to fix, but you know what? It's fine. Note that we leave some poop in literal. For example, the integer value slot will contain a value Does it work with a variable instead of a literal? No, because you're... That's handled by a different mechanism. I should test it, though. A variable is handled by inserting a cast. All right, so Sokoban still works. And then let's do the tests. All right. Oh! Dude. Test comma separated assignment. Maybe the test is wrong. Like maybe it was broken and I unbroke it, but maybe not. Let's go see. Okay, what is B to start with? B is from wacky. B starts at 1. We add 1, and it should be 2. It's supposed to be 2. It's just that when someone made this test, they asserted that they probably printed it and then asserted that it equals whatever it was. Right? So B is supposed to be 1.0 up here. So obviously after we add 1, it's supposed to be 2. It's just that the test was broken because it was trusting the old wrong values, right? So that's entertaining. And then, of course, if it was 2, it has to equal 4 after we multiply it by 2. So, yeah, the test code was broken. All right. Okay. Now, let's go back to what someone was asking a minute ago in chat, which was, what if this is a variable? Now, the thing is, if it's a variable, this doesn't exactly work, right? Because basically you can't do this, I think, right? So, because if a is an int that's equal to 1, and I say plus equals a, this is going to say, look, there's no implicit casting, I think. Although, now I'm not so sure. Okay, well that's not the desired result. We're breaking stuff all over the place, man. Oh, let's get rid of this. Go faster. So this is not a literal. I'm not correctly checking that this is a literal. Oh! Remember I added this thing? Right? Because it used to only be able to be a literal until an hour ago when I added this. The problem is this code down here assumes it's a literal still. Right? So okay, so if it's not a literal, if it's an identifier, then, wait, really? Huh. Maybe it's not ready yet? What's going on? Like, I don't know why that would yield, but it might have yielded. Anytime you call inferred types, it can continue as false. Really? Let's see why. Is there anything weird about this identifier? It's named A. It's not resolved yet. What the hell? This should be resolved. There's no excuse for this not being resolved. Binary flattened index. Right flattened index -1. Right, because it's a copy. Okay. If it's an identifier and we copy it, we lose most things about it. So we have to be special about that. Because the copier, when it copies an identifier, it's intending it to be something that'll be fed back into the lexer, which is not, it's not our thing. Do I not have a copy? I do have a copy ident. All right, so here's what we have to do. Boy, that whole allowing it to be an identifier was a little bit of can of worms. So if it's a literal, okay, we don't copy the resolved declaration. All right, so copy ident takes the interp. All right. Number mismatch. Okay, that's fine. This is what we want, right? Because this is not an implicit conversion that's allowed. The problem is just this assertion, which is something that I just added before that's not even really right. So all right, there we go. If A is a float, it should work, of course. So let's test that, because God only knows. Some stuff's been broken around this. All right, well that worked. Right? Well, let's test our regressions. I'm starting to get tired. I might be able to sleep soon. All right. Fix annoying problems about the RHS of AB ... equal whatever assignments. High quality commit messages. All right. That, however, is not the thing that I had set out to debug. Can you do XY equals YX? You can do that, but it will not give you what you think. And we're probably going to have a standard library code linter that warns you to not do that. XY equals A comma B does work, yes. Although, like I said, since everything is hella broken involving this, let's do that. I'm in the wrong shell. All right, so that worked. And then xy times equals b. So that should give us 2, 4. Oops. There we go, 2, 4. So that actually worked, thankfully. What is a failing test? That's a boring thing that I already talked about on the previous stream. I'm just not motivated to fix it right now because I'm not sure it's the right design decision. We'll go into it later again if I decide to fix it. Well, I'm getting tired, but I want to at least dig into the thing that I came to debug, which was not this at all, although it's good that we spotted that. It's this. Right? Okay, that doesn't work. Although we didn't expect that to work, right? But we want this to work. Oh wait, that works. Oh, no. What we're testing is, so that's an error. What we're testing is this. This autocast is, well, so first of all, it's non-autocasted, right? This should work. And it does. So we have 1, 2 times 3 is 3, 6. The question is, does this work? No. And the question is, why? Why? To wanted float given vector 3. The autocast is casting to the wrong type for some reason. The operator is confusing it. Right, for binary operators, for binary, right, okay, we do check that, oh God, okay. This is tricky. See, when we're type checking a binary operator, okay, I need to make a funky state variable that disallows let me just see where I am in the call stack when this happens. So basically, if we want something and we're given an autocast, then we cast it to the target type, but this is going haywire. Haywire. Right, so, well, this may not be the right place. No, this is in the preload. I apparently use an autocast in the preload. Math, math, math. Whoops. So we're going to break in site line number is equal to 13. Okay, that's our one that we want. So this is happening. Type check one overloads. Why is wanted a vector 3? Like what? I want to make sure that I'm type checking against what I think I should be. Line 630 of math. Operator times a vector 3 and float. That's all fine. Oh, it's symmetric. But that shouldn't matter because we're passing it in the same, like I was thinking, oh, maybe the argument order swapping is confusing it. But no, no. Wait, why is this argument 0? Maybe I did swap the argument order for some reason because it's symmetric. Why would that? So ident cast. V. I think V is on the right and the autocast, or V is the second argument and the autocast is the first argument. Why is that? How does that make any sense? Oh, because I swapped them there. Oh, because it's vector 3. Because we're checking against the wrong one, right? Because we want a vector 2, and this is vector 3. So the question is, okay, this should fail also, right? And we shouldn't have reported an error. We didn't. We swapped these back because it's a stupid hack. Okay. So we should keep going, right? Okay. This is a cast. Okay, what's happening is the following. When we see so this is when we call something, when we're trying to match polymorphs, we call things in this mode called silent check, which is what this true is. And that says, look, if the matching fails, it's not a user error because we're just seeing if it matches. It's not something that has to match for the program to work. Like if we want to know which of these 5 overloads we're trying to call, we just see if it matches all 5 of them, right? The problem is that we're doing a destructive modification down there where I set my breakpoint. And that is no good. See how I'm modifying this node. This should have just jumped out to me, right? I'm modifying this guy. And the problem is, so after we fail the first overload match, our tree has changed. And now it's not an autocast anymore, and it can't ever match anything else. So now I believe I already have a mechanism for things that play more nicely. Right, so I think if I just set it to be the substitution, like let me go to there. Right, so this is the round line 6500. So instead of destructively modifying, if I have a switchable expression, oh, we put it in the switchable expression, right? That's how I do it, which we have. So, we need a switchable expression. If we don't have one, report error site attempt to autocast, but the caller did not give us a switchable expression. This is not a user-facing error. That's an internal compiler error. Okay. So, we're just going to do this. But new cast expression is, because we need to point back at the same thing. All right. Something like that. Copy location info. Well, hey, look, it worked. We debugged our bug. We debugged our bug even though I'm tired. Yeah. This definitely should not work. Well, that's interesting. Well, let me check this in and then I'll give a better error message, right? This should not be an internal error. What we should be saying is, look, dude, you can't convert like this. No, that does the same thing. Okay. If you try to cast a string to a float, no matter what, I just don't give a very good error message. So let's get that. Fixed autocast problem. Oh, before I commit, let's run our tests. Oh, this is scary. This is a change that could break things, for sure. For sure, this could break things. So, Sokoban, hey, it runs. How about our test programs? It runs. Okay. Oh, let's. What's current lines of code? This doesn't count the libraries. Or this is not the game, this is the compiler. 41220. For the game, it's there. This doesn't count white space and comments. Well, I mean, those are tabulated here. This does because it's Lexer output. So, I don't know, the two programs, the compiler and the game, are maybe about the same size once you account for white space. Maybe the game's a little bit bigger. Maybe the game's a little bit bigger. Okay. If we have a cast, this is sort of, you know, normally I feel like I should do the errors in the type checker, but here is kind of where I get down and dirty with them, so maybe I'll do them here. The only time I would regret this is if later we do a thing where we pass errors to user code and give user code a chance to fix it, in which case it really should come out of the type checker, but that's not in version 1 of the language. So, okay. Let's just say if dest is a pointer, if dest is a number, whatever. These error messages can get better later when I'm not tired. Actually, let's make it a little better. It's always good to tell people, you know, why isn't it a number? What type does the compiler think it is? Because if the user's a little bit confused about what type it is, then that's good. Okay. So we need to do wanted string and given string. Right? Oh, string wanted and string given is what they're called. Right. What are my types called? Dest type and source type. Right, wanted float, given string. Great. Let's test the string version. Oh, that's not a cast. That's just a regular type mismatch. Auto cast. Cannot cast this to a string. Wanted string, given float 32. All right. Let's test it. Boom. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. I think that's it for tonight, folks. I think maybe tomorrow we work our way through a little bit more of this to-do.txt. Try testing explicit cast. Yeah, that'll work. I'm pretty confident, but explicit cast. Yep, cannot cast this to a string. Of course, the arrow isn't quite pointing to the right place. Let's do that. I mean, I need to get better about the arrow anyway. Like, I eventually wanted to underline the whole thing and all that, but we should at least... There we go. I mean, it's sort of pointing to the end of the thing, but at least it's not pointing to the word cast. It's a little better. We'll make that better later. Though I had to look at Zig, not really, because you know, after initially looking at it, it was clear that it's just different ideas. And, you know, I don't have that much time to look at everyone else's projects. So I think it's great that, you know, I actually met the author of Zig last year, or a little more than that, and we talked for a bit. And, you know, he seems to be really interested in what he's doing, so that's cool. And I encourage people to do their projects. You know, I just can't keep up with what everyone's doing while I'm working on a compiler and a game and running a software company and doing various other things that aren't even announced. So it's just my life right now. It's just my life. Will this language have built-in SIMD support? No, not in that way. So the reason is because your programming language doesn't know very much about your CPU's SIMD abilities. So the right way to do it, as far as I'm concerned, is with intrinsics, right? Now, you can have your data stored in structs that are SOA and whatever. It's just that they're not... I don't agree with the direction that people are doing of trying to put SIMD into the basic types of the language. I think it seems like a bad fit to me. Now, that could be wrong, but it's not a direction that I'm going right now. Am I going to design any more puzzles levels for the Sokoban game? Let's not say anything about that right now. Have I ever watched one of my streams to remember something I said or did? Yes. Yes. Can I ask why you see static cast and C-style cast at the same time? No, I don't use C-style cast. That you might be confusing. Oh, you mean in the C++ code. I see. It's just I prefer to use static cast because it's more explicit, but sometimes it's just a pain in the butt. Like sometimes I just want to use a C-style cast. There's not a good reason, honestly. Except that sometimes static cast is annoying and won't let you do the cast you want, whereas C-style cast does. Even though it's like technically illegal or something, but that's the dumb UB people being dumb. So yeah. Yeah, I know that Ginger Bill's language, Odin, does have SIMD types, and he's mentioning that he's starting to think he might want to remove it. I honestly don't know. Like, I think that might be a good direction to go, and just see if you can make it work, because sometimes the first time doesn't quite work right, but then you learn enough from it to make it work. I mean, I remember seeing a stream where you were really excited about putting the SIMD stuff into the language. So I think if that's something that interests you, go ahead and keep trying to make it work, and you might figure it out. Like, there's plenty of things in this language that didn't really work that well the first time or the second time, but like by the time I did them the third time or later, you know, I got them to work. And so all I'm thinking is just, it might be, so like I just said, it's not my personal excitement to put SIMD into the basic types, but I'm not perfect, right? And so, you know, because we're all human, it's very easy for us to have blind spots and to overlook things. So if it's the right thing to put SIMD into the basic types, which it might be, you could think of some arguments why that would be the case. If it's the right thing, then I may not ever see that, right? And so it's good if other people are exploring alternate things, right? If we're all working on the same thing with slightly different syntax, and that's not that interesting, I think. So I don't know. I mean, I think if you're genuinely interested in it, I'd encourage you to try to make it work. But I don't know. I mean, maybe you try it and you're like, I just don't see how to do it. You know, sometimes tactically pivoting is the right move. So I don't know. Is that a real fireplace? I mean, it's a gas fireplace, but it's a real flame. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming by. I'm going to try to go to sleep finally. I guess there's some rare possibility that I still won't be able to sleep and that then I'll wake up and do another stream. But I hope not. I mean, it's going on 6 in the morning. I should be legit waking up right now. See you guys later. Thanks for coming by. We'll do some more debugging later.